Paramedics raced to the 4th floor and found a lifeless Whitney Houston inside her hotel room bathtub. They tried in vain to resuscitate her with CPR.
Clive Davis having his pre-Grammy party as Whitney's dead body was being wheeled out was grotesque.
Leola Brown, Bobby Brown's sister, has said on several occasions that she was beaten. They saw her body. She didn't just die in a tub, like she was beat up. Her and Clive had a fight 2 days before, and then the next thing you know, she's dead.
There's a conspiracy that Whitney Houston was targeted. She didn't just drown in a bathtub high on drugs. She was attacked by men who say she owed them money, and a lot of money, over $1.5 million. So to pay back her debt, they sacrificed Whitney Houston's life. So let's get into it. Whitney Houston was known as The Voice for a good reason, because she's incredibly talented, though I think we can acknowledge that she has her personal struggles like a lot of us, and she had been open about her issues with addiction. Despite having issues with addiction, I have a feeling that her death could have potentially been a setup, and there's a conspiracy I want to entertain for you guys that kind of shows that maybe Whitney's death isn't as simple as an overdose. Now, Whitney Houston is a legend. Her music still plays on everywhere, and I think that people still have a sense of uneasiness when it comes to her passing. I mean, despite her being super open about these struggles with substances, it just didn't seem right. Here's a clip of Whitney being interviewed by Oprah and talking a little bit more about her drugs of choice.
Your marijuana, you lace it, you roll it up, and you smoke it, and your weed. It's just another form. It's like almost like heroin, cocaine, speedballing, but you level it off with the marijuana. Okay.
So your drug of choice was weed combined with cocaine.
Rock cocaine.
With rock cocaine.
Yes.
So yes, it's clear that Whitney has had her experiences with drugs, which kind of sets the stage for her to potentially overdose. Whitney died on February 11th, 2012, the day before the Grammy Awards, when she accidentally drowned in her hotel room. She left behind her daughter, Bobby Christina Brown, who would die 3 years later at the age of 22. But Whitney was found unresponsive and submerged in the bathtub inside the suite 434 at the Beverly Hilton Hotel, which I always drive by this hotel and I always think of Paris Hilton having her 21st birthday there. But now I have a feeling I'm going to think about Whitney Houston instead.
Hi, how you doing? This is security from Beverly Hilton.
Hi, what's going on there?
I need paramedics. Apparently, I got a 46-year-old female found in the bathrooms. That's all I've got right now, but they're requesting paramedics.
Oh, okay. Female found in the bathroom. What room is she in?
I'm not sure if she fell or she was in the bathroom with the water. 434, I'm sorry.
That's room 434?
Yes.
Okay, and it's not east, west, or anything else? It's room 434?
Yeah.
Okay, and you don't know if she was conscious of breathing at all?
Apparently she wasn't breathing, and she's 46-year-old.
She was not breathing?
Yes.
Okay, but she is breathing now?
I don't know.
So of course the hotel was a scene when her body was found, because they were trying to figure out what had happened and who she was, but it didn't take long for them to piece it together and the news got out.
Exactly what happened inside the iconic Beverly Hilton remains a mystery. Paramedics raced to the 4th floor and found a lifeless Whitney Houston inside her hotel room bathtub. They tried in vain to resuscitate her with CPR.
Even though they tried to perform CPR, they weren't able to revive Whitney. The coroner ruled that she died of accidental drowning with heart disease and chronic cocaine abuse. An acute dose of cocaine was found in her system, as well as a cocktail of other drugs, including marijuana and prescription sedatives. Which is scary because it reminds me of Matthew Perry. We talked about him on the channel, and he was doing ketamine and he drowned in a hot tub. And it seems like there is a theme when it comes to sedatives and drowning. I believe that Aaron Carter kind of had a similar situation with the bathtub. This report writes, there was water found in her lungs that indicated to us that she was alive when she was submerged underwater. They continue, according to our tests, the level of cocaine was not necessarily a lethal level of cocaine, but her death was complicated by chronic cocaine use and heart disease. The coroner's assistant said that she could have passed out first due to the intoxication from the cocaine, or she could have had a heart attack and then drowned. It's probably one of those two scenarios. scenarios. As soon as people learned about Whitney's death, there were tons of conspiracy theories. This article writes, as theories swirled about Whitney's death, it emerged that she was in so much debt that she was having to ask for $100 handouts from her friends. And it turns out her hotel suite actually had been paid for by Clive Davis. We've talked about Clive Davis before on my channel. He is a sketchy man. He was involved with the Diddy, and we will talk about him more in this video. Now, a private investigator came out and claimed that he had video evidence showing that Whitney Houston wasn't just dead from an overdose, but was in fact killed by drug dealers. They claim that Whitney was murdered by 2 drug dealers who were sent by high-powered East Coast drug dealers to collect on a $1.5 million debt. This officer, Paul, said that he presented the FBI with what he insists is compelling evidence that Whitney was targeted by these 2 men. He said the pair were unknown to most, but not all, of Whitney's huge entourage, which repeatedly visited her hotel room in the final days. So these guys were around her inner circle. Paul claims the men were captured on the hotel CCTV footage going into her suite number 434. Paul claims unnamed informants had told him about the surveillance video and that he claims that these 2 men are involved. They were entering her suite shortly after 2:45 p.m. the day she died. This was while her assistant was away, and he believes they demanded the money that she owed their bosses, and then when she refused to give it to them, things got physical. Although Whitney's assistant informed police that the last thing she told the singer before she went out was that she was going to have a bath, this investigator, Paul, thinks Whitney was thrown into water by 1 or more assailants, and what might have started off as an attempt to scare her ended in murder. Paul claims the day before Whitney died, she received a delivery of cocaine by the hotel pool. Around 3 a.m., she partied with a small group in her suite. Among them were the drug dealers. After they left, a stoned Whitney was seen on her hotel balcony shouting, "I'm tired of this shit." She was sick of being harassed about money she owed, as much as $1.5 million. When Whitney refused to pay and argued with the dealers, the next day they returned and killed her. Around 2:45 the following day, the day she passed away, when her assistant left, these 2 men came to her room. The assistant was gone less than an hour and arrived back at 3:35 p.m. to find Whitney dead. Paul claims he has footage that shows these men going into her room when her assistant left, which makes me wonder if they knew who her assistant was, so they planned it perfectly to go in and get Whitney when she was alone. He continues, the coroner's report shows plenty of small injuries. Whitney was thrown into the bathtub and drowned. It seems like things got out of hand rather than just scaring Whitney. The dealers took whatever they could grab, money, drugs, jewelry, and fled before Whitney's assistant returned to the room. Whitney's body shows classic defense wounds, which would have occurred if she was battling for her life. There are bruises on her arms and shoulders, a cut on her upper lip, scrapes to her nose and forehead, and lacerations to her scalp. Whitney had so many injuries that it looked like she had been in a boxing match. Which, if that is true, that doesn't align with a drowning. I mean, none of these things would have happened if she was unconscious and like sedated. And keep in mind, like, we didn't see anything crazy in her system that would have shown that she would have like led to her like passing out, would have shown that she would have been sedated to the point to like drowned. So then how could she even like get all of these bruises and marks and then find herself in the bathtub? The water in the tub tested at 93 degrees at 9:35 p.m., 6 hours after Whitney's death. She had a burnt section of skin measuring 5x3 on her lower back. That water must have been scalding hot when she entered the tub. Ooh, he says no one would get into water near boiling like that. She was thrown in and her head was held under the water until she drowned. And this guy Paul is not backing down. He says, I believe the Beverly Hills police and the LAPD coroner are happy to sweep Whitney's death under the rug, calling it accidental and closing their investigation. I was also tipped off by sources in a drug dealing world, I guess from New Jersey and Georgia, who were involved. And that's why we need a federal investigation. It's a matter of interstate conspiracy. I'm convinced that Whitney Houston was murdered. Now it'll be up to the FBI to prove it. Maybe Whitney Houston was set up by these men, but there's no denying that she wasn't doing well. This article writes, her final performance 2 nights before her death spoke volumes about how low she sung. She staggered on stage at the tiny Hollywood club called True, drunk, puffy-faced, and disheveled. She went up there to sing Jesus Loves Me, and it just didn't seem like she was okay. I think everyone in that room could tell that Whitney wasn't herself. hotel. That night, Whitney ended up getting into a fight with another singer, then left with her hangers on and blood trickling down her leg. She spent the next night, her last, in the bar of her hotel, heavily drinking and treating staff and fellow guests to her trademark behavior of wandering around, flailing her arms and doing handstands and burbling unintelligibly. Okay, so she's a messy drunk. Whitney was, by her own admission, no angel. However, much of her marketing people tried to manipulate her image. Like in 2006, a few months before the couple got divorced, Bobby Brown's sister, Tina, sold shocking pictures of Whitney's bathroom in her mansion to the press, and it looked like this bathroom was turned into a crack den. Her teeth had fallen out from the drug use, and she was so incoherent she was wearing nappies. Associates told the newspapers that Whitney Houston and Bobby Brown used to cruise the streets of New Jersey and Atlanta looking for crack. In the 90s, Whitney reportedly paid $750,000 to one drug dealer alone, so maybe that explains where the $1.5 million in debt could come from. Now, some people are wondering who's the source of these two men who would want Whitney Houston dead. And that's where Clive Davis comes into the picture, because some people believe that he actually sent these men after her. Keep in mind, he's also the one who was funding that hotel room that she was staying in. Remember, Whitney died right before the Grammys, so it's not like the Grammys is going to cancel everything because of her death, but you would think that Clive Davis would at least cancel his party because he was such a big part of her career, but he didn't. And I think that speaks volumes about how he felt about one of his top performers dying.
You were, I think, going to go to the Clive Davis party.
Yes.
It was a surreal event where Whitney's body was still in the hotel, and there was this sort of party where apparently half the room were in tears, the other half were kind of partying. What did you feel about that?
I thought that was complete insanity. I don't know what could motivate a person to have a party.
It is sick that Clive Davis would prioritize his party over this. I mean, it just shows who he is as a man. This person wrote, Clive Davis having his pre-Grammy party as Whitney's dead body was being wheeled out was grotesque. Also, a reminder of how disposable Whitney Houston was to these people who she turned into multimillionaires. While she's in debt, he's over here sitting rich and pretty and having parties at this hotel. This person wrote, he played a role. Clive Davis was the mastermind though. Whitney was literally sacrificed. That party was a ritual. They partied knowing her dead body was in the hotel. Jaguar Wright has been incredibly outspoken when it comes to Diddy, Clive Davis, and she shares a little bit of her thoughts on Whitney's passing. Here's a clip.
Leola Brown, Bobby Brown's sister, has said on several occasions that she was beaten. They saw her body. She didn't just die in a tub, like she was beat up. Her and Clive had a fight 2 days before. And from what I was told, Bobby Christina was present for some of that fight. And then the next thing you know, she's dead. Ray J was the last person to see her alive. He let the drug dealer in, but she was sober, right? But he let the drug dealer in that gave her the shot. And Brandy was the one that found her. But you know, they pledge allegiance to Clive too.
Right before Whitney's death, there was a bizarre moment I want to bring up, because there was an interview that Whitney had crashed and she passed a note to Brandy. And in this moment, people feel that this was Whitney's way of warning her that she was in danger. Now, I don't think Brandy has revealed what was in that letter, but I do question it. And, you know, learning a little bit more about Diddy, I feel like we can see that there's criminal activity clearly happening. And now the FBI, they're starting to pay attention, but, I wouldn't be surprised if, the Beverly Hills Police, like the FBI, the LAPD, didn't want to make a big deal out of this and didn't want to get really important people in trouble, especially when they are so rich. They have connections to these police departments, to these authorities, and they can convince them otherwise. So, should we reinvestigate Whitney's death? Do you think justice will ever come about? What do you guys think in the comments below? I think it's tricky because she did have her problems with drugs. She was open about it. But there are some things that seem really sketchy here, things that don't really add up. And where's that footage of these guys, these mystery men? But I want to hear what you guys think in the comments below, and I'll see you in videos soon. Bye, guys.